Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something really fundamental.
Absolutely physics.
Exactly, physics. It used to be called natural philosophy, didn't it? Kind of the parent science.
It really was. The quest to understand the basic rules of everything.
And that's what we're exploring today, how physics connects to, well, pretty much everything else. Chemistry, biology, astronomy.
Earth sciences, even psychology. We're drawing on some truly classic insights here.
A legendary source, definitely.
Yeah. And it's important to say, just because physics is fundamental, it doesn't make other things less important.
Right. Like, you wouldn't say love isn't valuable just because it's not physics.
Precisely. That's not a critique. Our goal here is really to uncover those connections, maybe some surprises, and the big questions that still remain where these fields meet.
Okay, let's start with chemistry. Maybe the most obvious link.
I think so. It's probably the science most directly reshaped by physics.
Thinking back to early inorganic chemistry, discovering elements, figuring out how they combine.
And then Mendeleev's periodic chart organizing it all.
But it wasn't just physics handing down laws, was it? Chemistry pushed back.
Oh, absolutely. It was a two-way street. Those careful chemistry experiments, measuring things precisely, they essentially proved atoms had to be real.
They kind of demanded an explanation from physics.
Exactly. They pushed physicists towards quantum mechanics to explain why those chemical rules worked.
So quantum mechanics, it explains chemistry, in principle.
In principle, yes. All those rules chemists found. Quantum mechanics is the underlying reason. Theoretical chemistry is, in a way, applied physics.
But in principle sounds like there's a catch.
There is. It's like knowing the rules of chess. You know, how the knight moves, how the pawn captures.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can suddenly play like a world champion or predict the outcome of a complex game.
Okay, I see. The rules are known, but applying them to predict specific reactions is still incredibly hard.
Very difficult. And this overlap also led to something called statistical mechanics.
What's that?
It came from both physics and chemistry. It's how we deal with systems with tons of atoms all jiggling around randomly, like in heat and thermodynamics.
You can't track every single atom.
No way.
Yeah.
So you use statistics to understand the overall behavior, like pressure or temperature. Think about predicting the average force of 1 billion bouncing balls in a box.
Yeah.
You don't track each ball, you look at the statistics.
Makes sense. And then there's organic chemistry, the chemistry of life.
Yeah. And for ages, people thought there was something special, almost mystical about it.
The life force idea,
Yeah.
that you couldn't make organic stuff from inorganic materials.
Exactly. But, well, that turned out to be wrong. It's all atoms, just arranged in much more complex ways.
And that leads us straight into biology, biochemistry.
Right into biology, which early on was very descriptive, you know, counting hairs on a flea, that sort of thing.
Cataloging nature.
But then the focus shifted to understanding the machinery inside living things. How does it all work?
And here's a twist. Biology actually helped physics discover something huge, right?
It did. The conservation of energy. A scientist named Mayer figured it out partly by studying heat exchange in living creatures.
Wow. So biology gave something fundamental back to physics.
This is a great example. Usually we think of physics explaining biology, but not always.
Okay, let's look inside. Blood circulation, that seems pretty physical. Pumps, pressure.
Classic physics, yeah.
Yeah.
Fluid dynamics in action.
Right.
But nerves are even more fascinating, maybe.
That incredibly fast signal, how does that happen?
Okay, so think of a nerve as a tiny, tiny tube with a really complex wall.
Right.
This wall actively pumps ions, charged atoms across it. So you get positive ions built up outside, negative inside. It's like a little battery.
Electrical potential.
Exactly. Now, the cool part is the membrane. If it gets disturbed at one point, say, ions rush through that electrical change, triggers the spot right next to it to do the same.
A chain reaction.
Precisely. A wave of penetrability that zips down the nerve fiber. It's an electrical disturbance propagating.
Like falling dominoes.
That's a perfect analogy. One falls, triggers the next, and the signal travels fast. And understanding electricity from physics was key to figuring this out.
Amazing. And then the signal goes out to a muscle.
Right. The nerve ending releases tiny packets of a chemical, acetylcholine, just a few molecules.
And that makes the muscle fiber contract.
It triggers the contraction. But here's the thing.
Okay.
The exact mechanism, how those chemical reactions physically change the muscle's dimensions, make it shorten and pull,
We don't know.
we actually still don't know the precise molecular machinery. How that chemical energy becomes mechanical force at that level. It's a major unsolved problem in biology.
That's incredible. So nerves and muscles are complex, but are they the most fundamental biological problem?
Maybe not, because life exists without them, right? Think about plants.
True. No nerves, no muscles, but definitely alive.
So the really deep questions might lie at the cellular level, because the one thing all life we know has in common is cells.
And cells are packed with chemical reactions.
Unbelievably complex chemical machinery. Take something like the Krebs cycle, the respiratory cycle.
I've heard of that. It's how cells get energy.
Part of it, yeah. It's this intricate sequence of molecules changing one after another, step, step, step.
Okay.
But doing these reactions in a test tube is often really hard. They need a push.
Activation energy, like getting over a hill.
Exactly like a hill. You need to put energy in to get the reaction started, even if it releases energy overall.
So how do cells do it so easily?
Enzymes. These are huge protein molecules. Massive compared to the little molecules they work on.
Okay.
And they act like tiny machines. They grab the reacting molecules, hold them in just the perfect position.
So the reaction can happen without needing that big energy push. It goes around the hill.
Sort of, yeah. It makes the path over the hill much, much easier. They facilitate the reaction without being changed themselves, and each enzyme is super specialized for one specific job.
Wow. And there are energy carriers, too, like little batteries within the cell.
Molecules like GTP and GDP, they carry energy around, kind of like carrying charged batteries to power things like muscle contraction. And importantly, enzymes obey physics. They work both ways, helping reactions reach equilibrium.
And physics helps biologists actually see these reactions, right, with isotopes.
Oh, absolutely crucial. Experimental techniques from physics are indispensable. Isotopes are like putting tiny labels on atoms.
Like carbon-12, carbon-13, carbon-14.
Exactly. Chemically, they behave the same because they have the same electrons.
Yeah.
But they have different weights or nuclear properties.
So you can trace them, like putting a green mark on a carbon atom and seeing where it ends up.
Precisely. You can follow the path of atoms through these incredibly complex reaction chains. We couldn't map biochemistry without them.
Okay, back to proteins and enzymes for a second. They're made of amino acids.
Yep. Proteins are everywhere. Enzymes, muscles, hair, skin. They're long chains built from just 20 different kinds of amino acids.
Only 20.
Only 20 basic building blocks. But each has different properties. Some make loops, some are acidic, some basic. One puts a kink in the chain.
And we know their structures now, like the exact 3D shape.
For some, yes. Since the 1960s, we figured out the exact atomic arrangement for proteins like hemoglobin. Thousands and thousands of atoms mapped out. A huge triumph.
I sense another but.
But even knowing the exact structure, why they work the way they do, how that specific shape performs its function, that's still largely a mystery. We have the map, but we don't fully understand the machine's operation.
Okay, so if proteins are the machines, what's the blueprint? How does a cell know which proteins to make? How does a fly make a fly baby?
Ah, that brings us to DNA. Deoxyribose nucleic acid. It's not a protein, it's found in the cell nucleus.
And it carries the instructions.
It carries the instructions for making the enzymes, yes. It's the master blueprint passed down through generations, and it has two jobs: copy itself and instruct the cell.
How does it do that? The double helix structure?
That's the key. It's two chains twisted together, like a spiral staircase. The backbones are sugar and phosphate.
And the steps?
The steps are pairs of four chemical bases,
Yeah.
A, T, C, and G. Adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine.
And they pair up specifically.
Always. A only pairs with T, and C only pairs with G. They fit together perfectly.
I'm at puzzle pieces.
Exactly. So when the DNA splits down the middle, each single strand acts as a template. It attracts the correct matching bases.
And builds a new complementary strand, so you get two identical copies from one original.
Perfect reproduction. It's brilliant.
And comes again, what's the big unknown here?
The big one. Our source calls it the central unsolved problem in biology today.
Which is?
How does the specific sequence of those A, T, C, G letters on the DNA determine the sequence of amino acids in a protein?
The code itself.
The code itself. We know DNA gets copied into RNA, which goes to ribosomes where proteins are made. We know there's a messenger. But how that message is read, how a sequence of bases translates into a sequence of amino acids, that precise dictionary is still being fully deciphered.
So we know that it happens, but not exactly how the code works.
You're getting closer all the time. But yeah, that translation is the core mystery. Still, biology is making incredible progress.
Driven by this core idea.
That everything is atoms. And all the amazing things living creatures do, it's ultimately down to the jigglings and wigglings of atoms. That assumption has been incredibly powerful.
Okay, let's shift scale dramatically. From atoms in a cell to the stars. astronomy.
An ancient science. Older than physics, really.
And it actually got physics going, didn't it? Studying planets led to Newton's laws.
Absolutely. But the big question connecting it back to us is, what are stars made of? How do they relate to us here on Earth?
And the answer is amazing.
Truly remarkable. The stars are made of the same kinds of atoms that we have on Earth.
How could we possibly know that? They're so far away.
Spectroscopy. We analyze the light coming from them. Different atoms emit or absorb light at very specific frequencies. They're unique tunes.
Like atomic fingerprints.
Perfect analogy. By looking at the light spectrum, we can identify the elements in distant stars. It's so accurate that helium and technetium were actually found in the sun before they were found on Earth.
That's incredible. So physics helps astronomy figure out what's in stars.
And how they work. Knowing how atoms behave under extreme heat and pressure lets physicists calculate conditions inside stars. We actually understand the sun's interior better than Earth's.
Really? Why's that?
Earth is messier, more complex materials at relatively lower pressures that are hard to model. The sun is mostly a giant ball of hot gas obeying simpler, though extreme, physics.
And what powers them? What makes them shine for billions of years?
Nuclear reactions, fusion, mostly turning hydrogen into helium.
Ah, the famous anecdote. The scientist and his girlfriend.
That's the one. He figures out why stars shine, tells his girlfriend, "I'm the only person in the world who knows this right now."
And she just laughed.
She was not impressed, apparently. But the discovery itself is profound.
And it goes deeper, doesn't it? It's not just hydrogen and helium.
No. The stars are where all the other chemical elements are made. Starting from hydrogen, heavier elements are forged inside stars through nuclear reactions.
So the carbon in my body, the oxygen I breathe.
Cooked in a star billions of years ago. Then the star, maybe it exploded, scattered that material across space.
And eventually it formed planets and life.
We're literally made of stardust. The stuff of us was cooked in a star. We could even tell by looking at isotope ratios like carbon-12 versus carbon-13. Chemical reactions don't change those ratios, only nuclear ones do. So our isotope mix tells us about the stellar furnace that made our atoms.
Wow. Okay, let's come back down to Earth. Earth sciences, meteorology, geology.
Right, let's start with the weather. Meteorology, we have lots of physical instruments, thermometers, barometers.
Physics provides the tools.
But the theory of weather, why it does what it does, physicists haven't really cracked it satisfactorily.
But it's just air moving, right? We know the equations for fluids.
We do. But the problem is, the air is highly unstable. It's swirling, twisting, incredibly sensitive to tiny changes.
Like chaos theory.
Exactly. Think of water flowing smoothly over a dam and then suddenly breaking into chaotic turbulence as it falls.
You can't predict exactly where each splash will go.
No. You know the starting condition, but the details become unpredictable. That turbulence is a fundamental problem that pops up everywhere, not just weather.
And geology. Understanding the Earth itself.
Similar challenges. The basic question, why is the Earth the way it is? We get erosion, wind, water wearing things down.
That seems straightforward.
But mountains aren't getting lower overall. Something must be building them up. Volcanism, earthquakes, these counter processes.
And we don't fully understand them.
Not at a fundamental level. We don't really know why a volcano erupts when it does, or the deep triggers for major earthquakes beyond the immediate rock fracture.
What's the leading idea?
Slow, circulating currents deep inside the Earth, driven by heat escaping from the core, like slow convection.
And these currents push the crust around.
That's the theory. Where currents meet and dive down, they might pull crust, creating mountains, stressing rocks, causing quakes and volcanoes.
But it's hard to confirm.
Very. We know how earthquake waves travel, which tells us about density inside the Earth. But figuring out the properties of matter at those immense pressures in the core is tough for physics.
We can't easily replicate those conditions.
Not easily. And modeling those slow currents, understanding rock behavior under that pressure, a lot still relies on observation and inference rather than calculation from first principles. We know less about deep Earth than deep space in some ways.
Fascinating. Okay, shifting gears again. Psychology. The mind.
Always a tricky one, and our source makes a very strong point first.
About psychoanalysis.
Yes. It argues psychoanalysis isn't really a science. Maybe a medical process, maybe. Well, the source uses the term witch doctoring.
Ouch! What?
Because it lacks experimental verification. You can't easily test its claims in a repeatable, quantifiable way. That's core to this scientific method.
So what about other parts of psychology?
Things like the physiology of sensation. How does the eye actually detect light? What happens in the brain when we hear something? There's been real, if slow, progress there.
Understanding the biological hardware.
Exactly. But the central massive unsolved problem remains.
Learning and memory.
Learning and memory. When you learn something, your brain must change physically. Some connections must be different. But how?
What is the physical trace of a memory?
We don't know. What atoms moved, what molecules changed, where do we even look? The physical basis of memory is perhaps the biggest mystery in this whole area.
The brain is just so complex, all those interconnected neurons.
It's staggering. Billions of nerves, trillions of connections. You can't just analyze it straightforwardly like a simple machine.
Even comparing it to computers falls short.
Way short. Human, even animal behavior is vastly more complex and subtle. The source jokes that if we could just understand how a dog's brain works, that would be a monumental achievement.
Shows how far we have to go.
It really does. Which leads to a general point about physics helping other sciences.
What's that?
For physics theory to be really useful, the other science needs to describe its subject in terms physicists can understand.
In terms of atoms and forces.
Pretty much. A biologist asking, why does a frog jump, isn't a physics question. But if they describe the frog's molecules, nerves, muscles, then physics can start to engage. You need the atomic details.
Okay, and there are some big overarching problems that cut across fields.
Two main types, according to the source. First, the historical question.
How things got to be the way they are.
Exactly. Biologists ask how life evolved. Geologists ask how Earth formed. Astronomers ask how the universe began.
But physicists don't usually ask that about the laws of physics.
Not currently. We generally assume the fundamental laws, gravity, electromagnetism, quantum rules, are constant. They don't change over time.
We don't ask, how did gravity get that way?
We don't. If the laws were changing, then physics would have a history just like geology or biology. But right now, we treat them as timeless.
Interesting distinction. And the second big problem.
An old one. A really fundamental physics problem left over from, well, a long time ago. That impacts many fields.
Not new particles or forces.
No. It's analyzing turbulent fluids. Circulating, swirling, chaotic motion.
The weather problem again.
Yes, and more. We mentioned weather prediction. Also, understanding convection inside stars that affects their evolution, why they eventually explode. We can't fully model it.
Earth's interior currents, too.
That too. And even something seemingly simple, calculating the pressure needed to push water through a pipe quickly.
We can't do that from basic physics.
Not for turbulent flow. If it's very slow flow or thick stuff like honey, yes. But regular water rushing through a pipe, that conchotic turbulence, we still can't fully analyze it from first principles. It's a 100-year-old unsolved problem in classical physics.
Wow. So wrapping this all up, it seems everything is connected, but there are still huge gaps in our understanding, often right at the intersections.
Beautifully put. And that brings us to that wonderful analogy. The whole universe is in a glass of wine.
Right. A poet said that. Maybe not literally.
Maybe not. But if you look closely, scientifically, it's remarkably true.
Oh, so?
Well, there's the physics right there.
Huh.
The liquid swirling, evaporating, the light reflecting in the glass.
The atoms jiggling.
The atoms. The glass itself made from Earth's rocks, telling geological time, holding secrets of stardust and its silicon atoms.
And the wine itself?
The chemistry. The complex organic molecules, how to get it, fermentation, enzymes, yeasts, life. All life is fermentation. Pasteur figured that out studying wine, didn't he? He did. Studying wine chemistry led him to understand microbes, disease. It connects biology and medicine. It's all in there.
Physics, geology, chemistry, biology, all in a glass of wine.
So if our minds find it convenient to divide things up, physics here, biology there, astronomy over yonder.
Nature doesn't know those divisions.
Nature doesn't know it. It's all one vast interconnected reality.
Which leads to a final thought for you, the listener.
Does knowing all this science, does it make the universe less beautiful? Or does it, as our source powerfully suggests, make it far more wondrous, more intricate, more awe-inspiring than any artist or poet of the past could have possibly imagined?
Think about it. Why don't we often hear poems about Jupiter being a giant spinning ball of methane and ammonia with the same reverence as if it were, say, a mythical god?
Maybe we should. Maybe the scientific truth, the reality of the cosmos and life revealed by these interconnected sciences, holds a beauty and a wonder that's profound and waiting for us all to appreciate it more deeply.